The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
The DOJ may be releasing.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Neerman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. That was a statement from Pam Bondi on February 21st, 2025, just weeks after she was confirmed. She was one of the first ones confirmed. And at this point, I have to ask you all, should we be calling for her head? Should we be calling for her head? Because things are not making sense. They're just not making any sense at all. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, I'm gonna present this story from two very different perspectives, because I really want to remain open to possibilities of truth. Okay? So I recognize that we are all purposefully being kept in the dark here about facts, about what happened here. And I'm going to be approaching this story tonight from two completely different perspectives. The first perspective I'm going to be approaching it from is likely one you do not have. Likely different from your perspective. And the second one is likely a lot more consistent with your perspective. I just want to keep all thoughts open. It's very easy for me to come in here and start screaming, Kash Patel's lying, Dan Bongino's lying, Pam Bondi's lying. They're all big, fat, stinking liars. That is where my natural inclination is to go here. Same as most of you, I suspect. Just go off on liar, liar, your pants are on fire. And there's no way you can square that round peg there to fit in this. This is not squaring. That video I opened the show with tonight of Pam Bondi saying it's on my desk for a review, and now coming out and saying there is no client list, which is the official statement that came out today from the DOJ, that there is no client list. That is impossible to square. And based on that, based on the fact that at some point within the past 4 months, Pam Bondi has been lying to us, either today, which I think most of you think she is lying today, or in February. At some point here on this issue, which is very near and dear to Trump's most ardent fans, there was a big, fat, stinking lie. And it really almost doesn't matter from the perspective of looking at her utility in this role. It doesn't matter whether she was just lying back then and she was just telling us what we wanted to hear. Don't worry, with the transparency, I'm going through it now, when there was nothing there, or whether it was a lie today. And there is a ton there, and they changed their minds and said, we don't want to share it with you, so we're going to lie to you and tell you that it does not exist. But at one point here, Pam Bondi's lying to us. At some point here, there's a lie. And there's no, I don't know how you get around this. I don't know if you're Trump, and Trump came out today with a statement which is very bothersome to a lot of people here, and rightfully so, because he came out today with specifically this statement right here, of all days come out. The FBI, under the direction of Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino, is back to the basics, locking up criminals and cleaning up America's streets. We have the greatest law enforcement professionals in the world, but politics and corrupt leadership often prevented them from doing their job. That is no longer the case. Really? It's no longer the case? Feels like it's the case today of all days. And now they've been unleashed to do their jobs, and they're doing just that. Keep it up. Make America safe again. It does not feel like that. It does not feel like that. People are asking, did anyone sign that statement? I did not hear her say that. Okay, we're going to verify, because I understand yesterday when I first reported this and I saw folks saying it, and a lot of people were like, well, those are Camp Elon folks, and they're just trying to stir the nest here. But now it is the official position of the DOJ, as I'll show you. Joe, is there a list? You were at the Maxwell case, so I trust you. We did not see a list in the sense of these are people who are being blackmailed. I'll explain to you why there was no call for us to see a list at that trial. I would take Pam's head. Yeah. I assume you mean that in the colloquial sense. We did not see a client list. We did not see a client list. But I told you I'm going to cover this from two different perspectives. So the first perspective I'm going to take now is going to be the perspective that indeed there is no list. Just so we can vet the possibility that this is actually reality. And that all the hunting we're going for a list, and all the screaming we've been going and looking for, where's the list, where's the list, where's the list, has been that we are basically victims of people lying to us about the existence of this list. How does this argument go? I would think that most of you probably haven't even heard this argument. You probably only have been hearing this is a complete and total lie. There's definitely a list. There's definitely 100% a list. But I'm going to make the case to you, and I don't want you to walk out of this video saying, oh, Joe's such a sucker. He thinks there's no list. That's not where I'm coming from. I know most of you who watch me understand that I'm able to sort of try and look at a story from two completely opposing angles just so I can try and flesh out what truth is. So I don't want you to take from the fact that I'm starting here that this is what Joe really thinks deep inside. But I do want to give a good faith examination to the possibility. Why? How could that be? After everything we've been hearing for so long, how could it be that there's no list? How could that actually be the reality of the world? Well, I was in a space today with a gentleman whose name is Michael Tracy, who fancies himself an independent investigator. I think he has far more bias than he recognizes, but he's certainly an intelligent individual. And he's of the opinion, this first position, that there is no list. Now, he hates Trump, he hates MAGA, he hates everyone. There's no one he likes. He hates Democrats, he hates everyone. I think that he takes the moniker independent as almost like an excuse to try and seem like it's cool to just hate everyone. Okay? So whoever he's talking to, he's that guy, he's the turd in the punch bowl at any party he goes to. No offense, Michael, if you're watching this now. And I think he relishes that role. I think that's, and I've been reading him for a decade now, because I was actually in this blog thing like 10 years ago, maybe more. I'm trying to remember the name of the app I used to use where I was reading Michael Tracy. But anyway, that's not really relevant neither here nor there. Let's break into the argument that there is indeed no list, and what we heard today from the DOJ is the truth. Where is it that we came to this conclusion that there is a list? What is the source for us to think that Epstein was doing all of these terrible things? Why would you think Epstein's doing this more than Bill Gates? Or, well, Bill Gates is a bad example, but why would you think that he has all these underage girls compared to any other billionaire out there? No one makes this claim about Elon, and I'm not meaning to imply anything about Elon other than his girlfriends. But I'm not saying. I certainly think everyone Elon interacts with is 100% above age. No one should take my humor as a genuine attack on Elon. 100% that was humor, and perhaps poorly timed given the circumstances we're dealing with here. Why is it that all these claims are made about Epstein? Well, we had the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. We have all these different girls who were coming out, or young, I guess, women now. I mean, they're older now. All these women coming out and talking about the abuse that they suffered. I attended the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. The Ghislaine Maxwell trial was really fixated on 4 women specifically and the harms that were visited upon them directly by Jeffrey Epstein individually. And there is a plethora and irrefutable evidence that Jeffrey Epstein himself, slimeball, sleazy, terrible human being that he is, that he definitely enjoyed inappropriately and in disturbing, perverted, depraved ways the company of young girls. There's no question about this. So, the question is, was he also providing that type of depraved activity to third parties? Now, at the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, all we heard about was these 4 girls in their service of Jeffrey Epstein directly. There was no talk about other clients or whatever, friends of Jeffrey that received any favors, inappropriate favors, because Jeffrey directed a girl to go accompany a guy, an underage girl to accompany a guy. There was nothing about that in the trial. In fact, part of the reason I've been calling that a cover-up for the last 3 years is because they tried to portray it as if this is his own individual personal fetish, and that's it, end of story. So, where do we come to this conclusion that what is the evidence we have that not only was this his own personal sickiness, but that this was also something that he was providing to third parties, presumably powerful men, for either money, favors, blackmail, extortion, but for one reason that for his own or just, I guess, a sickening type of friendship, but that he was actually having these underage girls provide services to other dudes, other powerful dudes, presumably. Where do we come up with this notion? What evidence do we have of that? Again, if you go through the entire Ghislaine Maxwell trial, there's almost no talk about other people at all. I know we've seen tons of pictures which look very, very damning. Okay, we've seen pictures. There's a picture of Bill Clinton sitting on a bed where he's topless, and there's a young girl, which you don't know if they're underage or not in the picture. It's hard to tell, but a young girl in the room there with him. Then there's a picture of Virginia Giuffre when she looks really underage there with Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein. That everyone has seen that picture. We understand that Virginia Giuffre has certainly made the claim that she was basically treated like a party favor that Jeffrey Epstein would give out to other people. So we have Virginia Giuffre, her testimony, her claims about this, and there's roughly 2 to 3 other girls who have made similar claims. The argument is that Virginia Giuffre, who is the loudest claimant, and I'm not looking to take sides here, certainly in the first part of this argument. The argument goes that Virginia Giuffre there are issues with Virginia Giuffre's credibility because one person that we know she made claims about ended up suing her for defamation, and after she made claims about this guy for ages, he sued her for defamation, and the result of that lawsuit was she made a public retraction saying she had lied. And that individual is Alan Dershowitz. He sued her for defamation, saying, "You're full of crap. You never touched me. You never had anything to do with me." And she ended up retracting her statements based on the fact that she made these retractions after she had been screaming vociferously that Alan Dershowitz is one guy that she had actually engaged in. this all of a sudden starts calling into question the credibility of Virginia Giuffre. Can we trust her when she says, I did this, I did that? Or is she someone who definitely there's kernels of truth to what she's said, but perhaps she's exaggerating, either because her mind, unfortunately, possibly was affected by the abuse that she undoubtedly suffered, and she certainly suffered great deals of abuse that no human should ever suffer. So either her memory was affected, and she started inventing things in her mind, or she purposefully invented things, certainly with respect to Alan Dershowitz, which would make you question, can you believe anything she says about there being third parties, that maybe she's trying to make herself seem more significant than not? Those people who want to make a claim that Virginia Giuffre is completely full of hot garbage are wrong. They are, I will tell you definitively on that, they are wrong. You said to me, Joe, how can you know they're wrong? I'll tell you why I know they're wrong. The reason I know they're wrong is we have a finding in the Ghislaine Maxwell case that she was convicted on 5 out of 6 charges, and this all corroborates, certainly with respect to Marianne, who testified about her time working with or performing for Jeffrey Epstein, that she was introduced to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell through Virginia Giuffre. So we don't only have pictures of Virginia Giuffre with Epstein and Prince Andrew, or was it Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew, but we even have other people who testified that the way they came to Epstein was through Virginia Giuffre. So there's definitely elements. There's definitely kernels, and it might not just be kernels. It could be just massive boulders or mountains of truth to what Virginia Giuffre said. But certainly for people to take it as gospel that everything she ever said is true is something that you're sort of ignoring the evidence to the contrary. So the argument here is that as soon as Virginia Giuffre came out and made these claims about Jeffrey Epstein, and that's not just his own personal stuff, but that he's got, a whole bunch of folks that he's basically, there's this whole ring here of people who all enjoy this particular thing, that story was red meat, first and foremost for the Q crowd, who have been saying this about the elitists forever, that they drink the blood of Satan and children, and that this is what they do, and the cheese pizzas and all the other stuff, and that this was red meat, that they, without properly vetting their sources, that MAGA basically jumped on this. And included in MAGA in that, ironically enough, is Dan Bongino, who made reference no fewer than 30 times in the past 2 years, someone looked it up, to Jeffrey Epstein's list, which makes you question that now. So you were telling us about a list the entire time your entire career is built, not exclusively on this, but a large stepping stone of your career is built on this, and now you're coming out as a deputy director to the FBI telling us it's all bunk. Well, what are we supposed to believe about you? What are we supposed to believe about you? So I want to see him question that. Were you lying those 30 times in the last 2 years that you said that Jeffrey Epstein, that there's a client list here? How did you come to that conclusion? When you're talking about Jeffrey Epstein offing himself, were you full of crap? That's a fair question to throw at Dan Bongino today. You were the one who convinced MAGA as much as any other individual out there, as much as any other person, certainly far more influential than me. So you're the one who convinced everyone that Jeffrey Epstein offed himself. You're the one who convinced MAGA that Jeffrey Epstein had this whole big list, and that it wasn't just his own sickening, twisted, disgusting, awful perversions that he himself would partake of, but that he was sharing it with his powerful friends. Was that all bunk? Is that what you're trying to say now? And the reason to believe that it's bunk is if you say, I don't trust Virginia Giuffre, well, now you're left with a handful of girls, there's three girls that Grok was able to identify. It was Annie Farmer, her sister Maria Farmer, and a third person who made veiled references here and there to other people, but no names associated. Now, if you want to push this one step further, in order to try and believe today's story, which is in complete conflict with what Pam Bondi was telling us, 4 months ago, you can basically say, hey, how is it if there's you want to throw shade on the story that there's client lists? You want to try and support the claim that there is no client lists. We've heard about thousands of victims here. I mean, none of them, not one of them, is willing to come forward and say, I was directed by Jeffrey Epstein to engage as a minor with this guy. You can't get anyone? They got Maria Farmer and Annie Farmer talking about different people that they were forced to perform with. Although, frankly, my recollection of Annie Farmer is that she escaped without it actually being harmed directly by Jeffrey Epstein. Fortunately, I hope she escaped. I don't want anyone to have to go through that. So if you can't give us a name, and it's supposedly all these powerful figures, you can't get the name of one person who was with Bill Clinton? You can't get the name of one person who was with any of these, with Prince Andrew, aside from Virginia Giuffre? There are thousands of victims. So when you start thinking about it from this perspective, you can come to a conclusion that perhaps Virginia Giuffre was grossly exaggerating her level of involvement with a lot of these powerful figures, and that indeed there is no Epstein list. This is if you want to try and accept the story that the DOJ and the FBI are selling us today. That's if you want to accept that story. I'll take questions as I'll go through chats here. If you have thoughts about this perspective, again, I'm not telling you this is my perspective. I'm trying to just give both sides here so that we can try and come to some semblance of truth in a world that is intentionally being clouded for us. Is Trump using Epstein files to push and control those in them? Why not use them as leverage? How is he getting industry leaders to make her investment? I saw Alex Jones said something like that. I'm going to share a clip on that soon. Epstein was likely smart enough to hide a list. It would not have been. It would have been his escape key. If it was no longer needed, a list would not save him. And here's the thing: why would it have to be a list per se? You think I don't think that's someone who's clever enough to actually create this entire thing from nothing. I mean, you know, when he's 20 years old, he doesn't have money. So I don't. And trust me, when I come from the other side of this, I'm going to be the other side of this. I have 1,000 questions. I just told you a couple of questions that MAGA should be asking themselves. Those folks who are coming from perspective that there definitely is an Epstein list. These are questions that we sort of should be asking ourselves. Well, if there's definitely a list, and it wouldn't be a list necessarily per se. It could be something that just like, okay, you know, he basically has this person and that person. There would be tons of video, right? I mean, there'd be video evidence, which tons of video seem to have gone missing from his New York apartment on 71st Street. So, yeah, there should be, and I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe any of it went missing. They're playing semantics with the word client list. Could be. You're saying that there's no, first of all, it's not client. They're not clients. There would be a list of people he's blackmailing. That's not a client. It's possible. It's possible. Elon was named in Epstein and JP Morgan case. Was he? We suspect Epstein had files on people because his money-making methods are unknown. Was he honeypotting people for leverage? I want his financial records to track his money sources. I agree with you on that also. We should have thousands of questions about how he got his money. He had to make him reporting something to the IRS. Like, what happened to his assets afterwards? Billions of dollars. What happened to his assets? And what happened with the reporting to the IRS? What is happening here? We seem to not know anything. It's very, very confusing. But I just wanted to share with you that thought, that if you're coming from the camp, which I assume most of you are, and that's the camp that I'm pretty much coming from, which is, this is all crap. Everything we heard today is a lie, and they're lying to us, and they're a bunch of lying, stinking liars. But I can't deny the fact that I do have to, that the link that makes us so positive that there definitely is a list, a large part of that is dependent on the test. If Virginia Giuffre had never said a word, a lot of that would just vanish. And I don't feel comfortable being that reliant on someone who has admitted that they lied about this topic. So, what's best to vote for New York City mayor? Anyone but Mamdani. Anyone. Anyone. Okay. But this is, I want to cut. So the point that I'm getting at here is, I think that we do have to have questions. How does he have all this money? How does he have all this protexia? I don't know if protexia is an English word or it's a Yiddish word. Protexia is a word my mother, rest her soul, would use as a reference to people who have protection from powerful figures. I really should look up whether or not that's English or Yiddish. I'm not sure. Protexia. But it basically is, from protection from on high. So, and he certainly had a great deal of protexia in the sense of the charges that he faced in 2007 were a joke for someone who had destroyed thousands of, hundreds, if not of underage minors. And the level of influence he had to be able to swing that deal with Acosta doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. The ability to not just be, he should go into jail for you would think the IRS would have been coming after him. And Acosta even made reference to the fact that he had some sort of levels of protection. If Epstein's proof was compromised, he would have no proof. So Intel only has to crack the glass, not break it. You're saying it's going to be hidden somewhere. That's what I assume you're saying. Okay. Now, if you're in this camp that I just spelled out here, where you're like, well, we don't know anything. You don't know that. This was just red meat that bigwig social media influencers from the right were basically throwing it out there saying, oh my God, this guy's got all these different people, and you're from that camp. And that all of them are depraved, perverted sickos who enjoy that type of activity. And all of them are satanic cults and the Clintons and whatever. And it's basically red meat for MAGA. You can't deny it is, right? When you hear that story, you're like, I knew it. And I'll tell you this much. I don't trust Q. I've seen videos about the whole Q thing. Okay. I think if you believe more than 3% or 5% of what Q tells you, I think you're out of your mind. You're crazy. Because I think they'll basically take this thing here, this thing there, this thing there. Now, I do see some things I'm just like, that's kind of a hard time to explain. But most of what I see from Q, if you put on your critical analysis, if you basically take off the tinfoil and put on a critical analysis hat, you realize that there's some things there which are very weird and hard to explain And there's a lot of leaps. Like you got to be like, I don't know, Usain Bolt running speed and just jump as far as you can to get like, and you're not crossing that chasm from what the facts they had to the conclusions they reach. You're just like, it's like, you know, someone. It's like, yeah, that's a bit of a stretch. That's a bit of a stretch. And did you know that his birthday is the same as that person's birthday? Some people, when they're talking, they're just like, and you know, Ghislaine Maxwell is even reading a book on the day Jeffrey and Epstein got. She's reading a book there saying the CIA, who people killed by the CIA. On the day that she was photographed, I'm just like, that's what you think she's trying to tip off you? she's sending you a clue. That's what's happening there. His phone book was released. That's true. At the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell, we saw flight logs that initially Maureen Comey redacted and then became less redacted, and his phone book. His phone book has a lot of folks in there who are definitely not part of the list. It is a who's who of people who are, you know, big names. All the numbers and everything like that are all blacked out, but it is a pretty big who's who. I'm not going to kid you. But earlier, I think it was Allegan News that made this point here about using it to leverage. That's the thought here. That maybe the reason. Maybe you shouldn't distrust Pam Bondi, and maybe this is all a sting operation. To me, this feels like a Q perspective, that it's like this is all some sting operation, that we're going to embarrass ourselves and hold this for. That's like, feels like trust the plan all over again. But I know where you got it from, because I saw this clip too, and this. Let's watch it together.
Trump has taken.
It's a little loud.
Control. He didn't do it. They're shutting it down from everything I've seen. He is taking control of the FBI CIA blackmail file. And now I suddenly see this deep state more and more rolling over. People say, well, that's very immoral to do. The argument would be it's too damaging to bring this back and bring down the whole government. I'm not endorsing that, but the best approximation I've got is they get the files, they raid the FBI. The FBI raids the FBI 5 months ago when they hid the files in New York.
Now, this is for Epstein. I don't know if they're talking about Diddy or Epstein. The overlap between what Diddy's doing and Epstein was doing, I think, or the claims of what both are doing, is that they are both pretty much using minors to enrich and empower themselves.
New York, they make the guy resign that was covering it up, and Comey's daughter's still there. They then load the gun, cock the gun, point at the deep state's head, and now suddenly the NATO, everybody's kissing Trump's butt. And it looks like Trump is now in control of the file, and obviously they're not going to read in the FBI. It's the CIA and Ratcliffe doing it. The best approximation I've got, and it is speculation, but I got a lot of points, is that Trump has decided to just use the file against them. What do you think, Judge?
I think you're right on point with that. I think a great deal of what happened with Smith and Millargo when the FBI raided it some years ago, and this thing that clearly they had no standing to go against about him supposedly having classified confidential documents, when, as we have discussed, the President of the United States under the Constitution as chief diplomat and commander-in-chief has been held to have absolutely unquestionable authority as to what he declares either confidential and secret or decides to declare is not such. So my sneaking suspicion is that a lot of what he refused to turn over to the archivist, which was unconstitutional in terms of what it was trying to put in place through statutory override of constitutional authority, which is wrong. is that there was wrongdoing that if he turned it over to the archivist was going to be turned over to the people who were recorded doing wrong, and they would destroy it. So we had an obligation to the people to maintain control of that, which he did. And I see absolutely nothing wrong with it. And it's been dropped. It's dead. It's not there, but he knows that. And I have a sneaking suspicion that when the investigations are completed and they're solid, we're going to start seeing something come out of it.
What? I don't even understand this. I don't know. So the claim is that he took the Epstein file with him to Mar-a-Lago. How would that? Okay. No. 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 So you're telling me in January 18, 2021, he's packing up and he's like, oh, let's take the Mar-a-Lago stuff because 4 years from now, I'll be back here. And I'm going to want to use this to pressure folks in my role as President 47. No. 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 You see, this to me is this. I'm sorry. And I like Judge Joe Brown a lot. I like Alex Jones a lot. I have great respect for both these men. I feel as if this story has made people's heads just sort of spin around like it's Exorcist or something. I don't know what's happening here. I don't know what's happening. No, this makes no sense at all. None of this makes any sense to me. No. I see he's taking it to Mar-a-Lago, and they didn't tell us that that's what it was. And no one used that against him. They would say, oh, he took those files to Mar-a-Lago because he's in those files. That's what they would be saying. And we would have heard that from Jackson. No, this is bananas. I'm sorry. I don't understand what he's talking about here. And people telling me that so Trump's got it and not his DOJ. You're talking as if like he's a 30-year-old man here, and he's like, he's keeping things secret and separate apart from his own DOJ, letting his DOJ go out there, make complete jackasses out of themselves, lie and tell people that we're going to share the list and tell the whole world I'm going to be sharing the list, I'm going to be sharing the list. And this is all some plan he had 4 years ago? Come on. I don't know. People are breaking my heart here. They're breaking my heart because I think they're saying things that make no sense. It doesn't make any sense. None of this makes any sense. None of the perspectives I'm hearing are making any sense. This doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. It doesn't. He took it to Mar-a-Lago. Okay. Maybe it was next to Biden's Corvette. This doesn't make any sense. It makes sense to you that this is all some trust the plan thing. No, anytime people are basically telling you something that you can surmise that the message they're telling to you is trust the plan. Just tell me that. I'm telling you right now. Just say no. I don't trust any plan. I don't trust a plan. You're well within your rights to say no. I distrust the plan. I don't think there is the plan. I think that the plan is not there, and you're hoping. You're so frustrated. You're so upset with what you're seeing that you're inventing that this is all part of some brilliant 7D chess thing that Trump is coming up with here. Trump is a great president. Trump is a phenomenal president. But all these people who talk about like 7D chess and stuff like that, it's like just stop mythologizing the man as if like he's got this whole, and then I'm going to have these people do this, and then the National Guard's going to be there, and then Pam Bondi's going to do this, and that's going to get the UK to do that, and the EU to do this, and then they're going to come here. I'm going to twist NATO's arm. It's just no. I think that he tries putting himself in positions to effectuate things. I think he has in general Not with this particular incident. This particular incident is a disaster. Anyone who tells you this is not a disaster is trying to cushion the blow. I come to you for the one purpose, and that is to be completely straight with you about my perspective of of interpreting the world around us based on facts and applying logic and common sense to the facts that we have access to. And trying to admit to you, then, hey, these facts seem blurry, or these are in conflict with each other. And this is what I think about it, but I could be wrong. This is based on information we have today. And I think that's why people watch me. And I'll tell you right now, this explanation that we're getting, this sounds like desperation. Maybe it's this, and no. I'll tell you this. This is a black stain for the Trump administration. The Epstein scandal here is now carrying over and becoming a Trump administration scandal that I'm telling you now, if this is not rectified, whatever accomplishments that, God willing, Trump will manage to make, this will forever be a black cloud, because this is not a small thing. We are talking about potentially here, assuming that the first story, the first perspective that I laid out for you was incorrect. And that was the first perspective that I spent the first 20 minutes, half hour laying out for you here, was the notion that there really is no list. And that thought process, assuming that there really is the scandal that everyone thinks has been believing there to be behind Epstein and the CIA and FBI and Mossad or MI6 or KGB or whatever other agency, Interpol, whatever stupid agency you want to list out there, that he's being handled, that the money was put into his account by some of these agencies in order to enable him to act like some playboy and serve as a honey trap with the most disgusting, awful type of bait imaginable. The same story we all become all too familiar with, unfortunately, over the last several years, that assuming there's any truth to that, the way the Trump administration has handled this, from campaign to Pam Bondi's nomination to Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and all these other folks, this is humiliating. And this is not something that is going to be washed away. This is something that will darken the cloud of this administration. Now, you could try to fix it. You could fire Pam Bondi and say, I don't know what the hell you were talking about back in February. But we're going to, you build yourself out. And I say build as BILLED. You build yourself. You put yourself in lights as all about transparency. We're all about the transparency. You had that embarrassing review of social media influencers dancing out with the binders of big, fat, stinking nothing. Big, fat binders of breaking news. Here's information everyone had 3 years ago. And that humiliating debacle to today. And I'm sorry, we're talking about here, the reason this is so near and dear, the reason I don't say this lightly. I usually say things that happen in an odd number year are not important. And likely when it comes to elections, that holds true for this too. As serious and grave as I think this is, likely this holds true too. Because invariably, as much as we tend to think that this in the moment is a big deal, election time, what matters is the economy. So it's very possible, economy is swimming along, 2026, 2028, that voters will not punish Trump or Republican Party for this debacle. But in the annals of history, when we're looking back at this incident, this is a black stain that will not wash away. Because there's reasons that this was important. We're talking about the most vulnerable people being harmed in the most awful and disgusting and disturbing ways imaginable. There's a reason this story has been front lines going all the way back to, if not 2007, 2019. And that's because this is the worst type of abuse imaginable. This is a line too far. We're all used to the corruption of Washington, and this was a line too far. This is no. I'll tell you right now, I do not think for a second that Trump is actually on that. Despite the fact that a lot of people are having that speculation today, I do not think for a second that he's on the list. I do not think for a second that the reason why the list all of a sudden doesn't exist is because they're trying to help protect Donald Trump. I don't believe that for a millisecond. But I will say this. If, in fact, I'm wrong about that, on the 1 in 1,000 chance I'm wrong about that, and he is on that list, that man, like any other person, should spend the rest of his days in prison. I don't care who it is. I don't care how wonderful we may have thought that any individual is. Anyone who did that to any of those girls, anyone, Donald Trump himself, and again, I don't think that he did. I think there's less than a 1 in 1,000 chance that he's on that list. But anyone on that list of being a map who was being spoon-fed by Jeffrey Epstein, that person, I'm sorry, not only do I believe 100% that that person should be nowhere near any power ever, I think that person should be embarrassed and humiliated and publicly shamed forever. And if you disagree with me about this, I think this is something I feel so staunchly about that if you disagree with me about this, I question you. Like, how can you possibly excuse that? No one can excuse that. This is inexcusable. And it's because it's so inexcusable, because it's so wrong, because it's so depraved. That's why this was such a triggering thing for MAGA. We were like, no, we can't just let this story die. You can't just, it's not like, oh, on to the next news cycle. No, this is it. This is, there has to be a point where it's like, this is the line. If it's not here, where is it? If it's not in this story here, where is the line? There's no hope for humanity. This is it. You did it or you didn't. And if you did, that's not forgivable. Now, again, I don't think for a second that he's on that list. But that's why this was such a big story. Because it is that inexcusable. Now, assuming that my 99.99% perspective on Trump is accurate, and he's not on that list, this still becomes a stain on him because he has control of all the levers of power here. It is his DOJ. It is his FBI. It is his people. It is the people who were the heads of MAGA, the biggest patriots out there. 6 months ago, I can promise you, if you identify as MAGA, that 6 months ago, if you had to list off 10 people who you would say are the heart of MAGA, 2 of those people would be Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. Pam Bondi, no. But 2 of those people, you would definitely put Trump, obviously you put him number 1. I can promise that anyone who followed politics at all 6 months ago would have put both Kash Patel and Dan Bongino on that list. And they're coming out here now as talking mouths, basically saying, "Oh, why people think that he self-deleted? Why would you think that?" What do you mean? Why I think that? Because I actually trusted you. So I was a fool for trusting you then, or am I a fool for trusting you now? This is a stain that doesn't go away. The only way this goes away is with complete transparency. I'm talking about financial records, that people can actually look at Jeffrey Epstein's financial records. This is a stain that goes away when you start indicting the people who are in those videos. One after another, after another, after another. Indict them. So maybe they weren't being blackmailed. Maybe there's no blackmail list. Maybe he wasn't blackmailing people. Maybe somehow, whatever, it was just a honey trap and he wasn't the one blackmailing. Maybe the blackmailing was being done by his handlers. That's possible. So maybe there is no list. Maybe it's just this is what CIA was, an operation CIA was running, or Mossad, or MI6, or KGB, or anyone, or all of them. I don't care. But what I'm saying is someone was doing something here. Someone put money in his bank account. Someone enabled him to actually be in a position that he could buy a freaking island and an airplane and a helicopter and all this other crap that he's able to buy, all that other stuff that he was able to put his hands on and get, and then lure folks in there, folks like Donald Trump, As, oh, I'm a big rich guy. Oh, hey, I'm the big man on campus here. A guy who, when he's 20 years old, 25 years old, is not coming from money. A guy is able to, God knows how, get Les Wexner, or whatever the guy's name is from the head of Victoria's Secret, to give him control of all his money, even though Epstein has no history in being an investment trader, being an investment banker. But just give him all his money. Les Wexner. How does this happen? We need these answers because you embarrass the hell out of yourselves here. You embarrass the DOJ. And I'll tell you right now, you ask me, Pam Bondi's head should be on the chopping block. I'm talking to you, Pam, okay? I want to see indictments from you. Not in 3 months. No. I want to see indictments from you this week of people who are in those sickening videos. You come out here and start talking this. You want to know why there wouldn't be indictments? Because you're worried that the defendants are going to start talking. That would explain why there's no indictments. How do we not have indictment after indictment after indictment? Why is Prince Andrew not indicted? Why? Where is it? Where's the indictments? You come out here, oh, there's nothing to see. There's nothing to see. We'll talk. I'll cover the other videos, which basically talk about how even the links they shared, people are trying to poke holes. Hey, there's a minute here that's missing. I don't know. I don't even know if we're looking at his cell. I don't even know if the thing is recent. You think AI couldn't change the date there? It could be that video could have been taken 3 days ago. What the hell how do I know anything about this? You think I'm able to trust them now? And it's sickening because these are the people that we trust in more than anyone. This is a stain. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this and be like, oh, okay, you know what? This is a rough week. This is a tough weekend. No, I'm not sugarcoating this. This is a very, very big deal because it's that near and dear. It's that significant. It's something that you talked about throughout your campaign. You talked about the transparency. You had your DOJ come out there, and the head of the DOJ, she comes out there saying, I'm going through the list. I'm going through the list. I'm going through the list. Everything's coming out. It's going to be transparent, giving stuff out to social media influencers like DC Drano or Libs of TikTok or other folks, Benny Johnson, whoever the hell else was there. That was all humiliating. And now you come out now and say there is no social list. Why do people think there's a list? Why would you think there's a list? Who comes? List? What? What list? There's no list. What are you talking about? Come on. That happens all the time. The cameras go out and people end up, self-deleting and no one's there even when they're on a watch. Happens all the time. This stuff happens all the time. People suddenly have $1 billion in their bank account. People get sweetheart ridiculous deals from the DOJ for really, really terrible crimes. 2 years, 18 months with plea deals, and then go in and then just suddenly they just, they have nothing to worry about because he wasn't doing anything wrong, and yet for one reason or another, he self-deleted. Why did he self-delete? He had nothing to worry about. Why would he self-delete? Seems like a really innocent guy, according to DOJ. So, what kind of stupid person would self-delete in that in that situation? None of this makes sense. And this stain is going to last, and it's going to be over this. I don't care if you deport 50 million illegals. People will be like, yeah, but what happened with the Epstein thing? What was with the Epstein thing? And it's going to wash. This ugly stain is going to wash back because more and more people are going to start claiming, hey, you know why Trump didn't want that list out there? That's what people are going to say. How can you prove them wrong? Go prove them wrong. Now, I don't believe that's true. How am I supposed to prove them wrong? I can make the point that, hey, he never would have talked about this whole thing if he thought the people on the list know they're on the list, right? You know you're on the list because you knew you were there. So someone knows. It's not like, trust me, it's not like you'd be sitting there saying, how did my name get on? You know if your name's on that list. So the fact that Trump was talking about exposing this whole thing and made a big deal about it tells me that's part of the reason I have a strong belief that he's not on any list. But a lot of people are not going to accept that explanation. So there's problems here, and this is you think I want to spend the rest of my life like trying to answer for this idiocy? This is terrible. There's no reason for it. It's awful. This was a real disaster. So yeah, I want to see Pam Bondi fired. I want to see someone else come in there. Preferably, if you ask me my top choice, be Andrew Bailey, Attorney General from Missouri, who's based as hell. Let him go out there. I want him to tell me what's actually happening here because I don't trust Pam Bondi anymore. And I want him to start dropping indictments. Drop them freaking indictments. One after another. Everyone on here. Here's the girl blurred out. There's the guy. Here he is. Him not blurred out at all. Everyone can see. This is this animal here. Prince Andrew, I don't care. Whoever it is. Whoever. No exceptions. Please do the airplane again, little Joe. Is it the airplane? I don't remember. Oh, that. Compromising material on anyone can be leveraged. Remember, being outed as gay or degenerate could ruin your career and company. Kids not required. Yeah, they didn't have to do this. They did not have to do this. He doesn't need to bring files in first term. Barbie said the FBI was hiding files. After Barbie, AG, and Cash brief him, he has a choice. Okay, you're right. He doesn't have to bring it in tomorrow. It has to happen this week. It has to happen this week. And when he comes out with this statement here, when he comes out with this thing here, that's messed up. You come out with that today? That's messed up. I'm sorry. Santa has the list. The Naughty Nice song is a proof. We need the feds to investigate the North Pole, perhaps. I don't care about Epstein. I see this as a distraction and a thought experiment that is fun, but it won't make America great. We all know Epstein was awful, and we've known that for a while. It's not that. It's that this is something that, like, it shows that they cannot be trusted. It shows that it's business as usual in D.C. It shows how terrifying is it, assuming that they feel compelled to lie. What is their motivation here? What is the motivation? Like, are they threatening Cash's kids, God forbid? I don't know if he has kids. Dan Bongino's? They're threatening their lives? And who has such influence? And what else can they be influencing? That level of influence. It's like, how can we have confidence that they have their own agency? And I don't mean agency as far as like the FBI being an agency. I mean like that they have their own agency, their own freedom to do what they want to do, rather than just being puppets. If they can be puppets here, why can they not be puppets anywhere? I'm not hangry. Maxwell is the person who can reveal people. That's true, Wesley. I don't need a list to know the wealthy or the degenerates. I want to boost the economy, secure borders, and no new wars. Yeah, well. I saw something about funding Ukraine. Right before I went live. I don't see that. I don't know. The video is not a cell. That's a fact. 2023 OIG report shows exactly where that camera was. It was nowhere near Epstein's cell block. I know it's supposed to be showing people going back and forth. I don't know what the hell that video is supposed to tell us. I know that if I'm ever, I think Linda only pops in here if she thinks that there's a chance I'm going to be bashing Trump. That's the only time. That's the only thing that draws you out. I take it as a compliment because it means you're watching very closely. You're not always there, but you come out. You come out when you're like, here it comes. And you hear Joe. Let me get Joe on. Let me record Joe bashing on Trump. Joe, is Jeffrey Epstein working for the CIA, DOJ, and Israel? Is this why DOJ is saying there's nothing to see here? Possibly. I don't know. None of us know. It shows many dangerous people are still out there. It's very frightening, Tracy. It's very, very frightening. It's a very, very scary statement that we can't know. Something very, very weird is happening here. And they definitely do not want us to know. Here's Caroline Levitt. For those of you who think that maybe it's not the DOJ perspective.
Caroline, the DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable. And I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration.
Not good enough. Not good enough, Caroline.
And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the president's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography.
Why don't we have the guys who were involved in that? Why are they not being charged?
Which is not something that's appropriate.
No one thinks you should be releasing that. You see, this feels like a deflection. No one wants that. No one wants to see that. No one is asking why you're not putting that out. But I can't believe all of it is solo. So where are the guys who were in there?
For public consumption, but they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's
their results are hot garbage because the results should have been here are indictments. Here are the financial records as to how he got his money.
transparency.
I'm sorry. Big fan of Caroline. Not today, Caroline. Not today. Avi P. meant in 1956, 2025, BDE, great musician. Rock Dynamos. He was a Jewish singer. He wasn't. So, yeah, it's not a question whether or not the DOJ is taking this position. This is their position, that they're done here. And if they think that this is just the end of it and that they can just move on to the next story, they're crazy. They're crazy. That's not reality. Tell me if you think I'm wrong, that this is not going to be haunting them for a very long time. Yeah, she did. She did. It's awful. Yep, that is their deflection. We do want the financial records. This is why I think Trump's leveraging material. Is it right? No. You can't come out there and claim that you're being transparent and at the same time be using this to leverage. It's the exact opposite of transparency. If he came out, and I'll tell you something, if he came out and said that, yeah, I'm using this to leverage people. Would that make it difficult for him to leverage? No. No. So why not come out and say that? You can still do it. I honestly believe it's the fact that Satan has such a deep hold on power at the top, and we're in for a spiritual war of our lifetime. It's scary, but this is the hill to die on. Yeah. Yeah. We can offer no quarter to this. No quarter can be given. This is really, really messed up. Really, really messed up. Here's timeline here broken down by vigilante. Just a synopsis here. Epstein client list is supposed to be sitting on Pam Bondi's desk for review. Months later, DOJ says no such list even exists. February 21st, this is her here.
Sitting on my desk right now to review.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because
that's the first question she needs to be asked. What was on your desk? What the hell was on your desk?
that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you. The DOJ may be.
Ever since late February, it seems cover-up wasn't exposed, but buried even deeper by those who promised transparency. First, they handed out the so-called Epstein files to influencers like Golden Willy Wonka tickets, only for everyone to discover that almost all of the contents inside were already public. This was humiliating. Fast forward to May, suddenly Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are declaring firmly that Epstein did this to himself.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's
Trust me, bro.
Who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
And Dan Bongino, I mean, look at this guy. Look at him.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
I know it's hard work.
I know it's hard work doesn't even make sense there. So that was clearly edited by Fox. Today, Trump appointed DOJ and FBI released a new report that's turning heads and raising plenty of questions, including Epstein has no clients, didn't blackmail anyone, definitely did himself in. They also released surveillance footage and claimed it showed no one entered Epstein's cell area, supporting that whole self-deletion ruling, but people aren't convinced. Some allege the video cuts off with a minute of footage missing between 11:59 p.m. and midnight. Here's the video. Look at the timestamp in the lower left corner there. 56, 58, 58, 12. Oh, wait, we just missed a minute. I don't know what that minute is. I don't know that. I mean, you would think that maybe the turnover of the time, that there's maybe the camera rewinds or so. I don't know. I don't know what happens there. But this isn't even his cell. So I don't know what we're supposed to be seeing here. What are we supposed to be getting out of this? This part here supposedly is not his cell. This is a doorway. This part is a doorway to like a hall. So I don't know what we're supposed to be making out of any of this. This afternoon, White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt responded to questions about the Epstein list in light of these new DOJ and FBI statements, and we saw her answer. Leavitt was also pressed about Attorney General Pam Bondi's comments in February when she claimed she had an Epstein list on her desk. Let's hear this.
So the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox
I've
News.
got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called Summer Heat, which has our murder rate
Deflection.
trending in the lowest direction in United States history. Their emphasis on violent crime and locking up violent criminals has led to the arrest of 14,000 violent criminals. That's a 62% increase.
You're deflecting.
From the same time period last year. So this Attorney General and the FBI Director are committed to putting bad people behind bars where
As long as they're not related to the Epstein scandal.
they belong. They promised an exhaustive review. That's what they did. For any further details, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
Awful answer. She knew she was going to get that question. And they told her before she went out there, you're going to deflect. Awful. Transparent deflection. What jurisdiction is Epstein Island under? Southern District of Florida. Could they be doing a joint effort with Interpol since it involves perpetrators in different countries? Seems highly unlikely. Because you don't have to create this memo. Just stay silent. Why are you putting this memo together? I think the memo likely got released by accident, and then they were like, okay, well, this is our memo, so we're going to just sort of embrace it. But Joe, he can't admit he's blackmailing people. That's a serious crime. He face impeachment. How many Republicans are also compromised ladybugs? Not blackmailing. There should be some reassurance that at a certain point this is going to be released. Not this, which is game over, leave us alone. That's what this is. This is game over, leave us alone. Joe, why isn't the timestamp in military time? I don't know. You're right. You would think it would be. It should be like 23:58. It's a reasonable question. It's very, very aggravating. Everything about this story is very, very aggravating. But yeah, I do want the money. I want that money trail. I want to know how he got his money. Barrett Boy says, not enough characters to express how horrible this is. They were to expose the deep state. They're exactly not doing that. They're MAGA no more. Yeah. Yeah. It's so damaging. It's just, this was so damaging. Just inexcusable. Someone's asking whether Trump made that promise himself. I'm looking at my diggers and locals. That's a good question. So I'm asking Grok this very question. In September 2024 interview with podcaster Lex Friedman, Trump stated he would have no problem releasing such files if elected and would certainly take a look at it. He suggested release could reveal information about influential figures associated with Epstein, though he noted he was never involved with Epstein Island. Similar comments were made in other campaign appearances, such as June 2024 Fox and Friends interview, where he indicated he would declassify Epstein-related files. Though he later qualified this by saying he was less certain about Epstein compared to other declassification promises like JFK or 9/11. These statements were widely interpreted by supporters and media as campaign promises to release the Epstein client list, despite no definitive evidence that such a list exists. Yeah. This just feels like betrayal. Horrifying. I don't know. Circling back. If it's the same memo I saw earlier, no one signed it. Well, now they're embracing it, though. Even if no one signed it, they're embracing it. Caroline Leavitt is press secretary. She speaks on behalf of the president and all the executive agencies. They have embraced it. There's no getting away from this at this point. Hey, Joe, what does Ghislaine Maxwell have in relation to this list? Why haven't we gotten heard anything from her position on all this? Is her arrest not amounting to anything? She was convicted. There were 6 charges brought against Ghislaine Maxwell. I attended the trial, which was back in 2021. She was convicted on 5 out of 6 charges. The trial was specifically about Jeffrey Epstein's personal use of inappropriate use of 4 underage girls. All 4 of them came out and testified. Virginia Guffey did not testify in that trial at all. A lot of people felt, myself included, that those charges themselves were part of a cover-up. The trial was handled by Maureen Comey, the same daughter of James Comey, who is she's a skilled litigator. They landed 5 out of 6 convictions. But all of the conduct that Ghislaine Maxwell was found guilty of was that she was helping enable and facilitating these Jeffrey Epstein's illegal conduct with underage girls for his own private personal use. All of them testified about massages that they were paid a few $100s a pop. You can use the term pop in multiple ways in this setting. And that they would provide massages, and they ranged in age between 12 and 17. Most of their work taking place either in New York or in his residence in Palm Beach. We saw pictures of Epstein Island. The first one who came out, there were 4 different women who testified again. The only one who testified under her real name was Annie Farmer. She talked about how she was taken out to New Mexico, where he has a ranch there. From what I recall, I think she ended up giving him a foot massage. I don't remember exactly. And that he came into the room with her. The other 3 testified on the pseudonyms. One of them was a woman. I always forget whether her name was Carolyn or Marilyn. It's been a while. I apologize for that. She was the 3rd one to testify. Annie Farmer was the 4th one to testify. The first woman to testify was a soap opera star who was acting under a pseudonym. The second woman to testify was an international supermodel. And each of them talked about how Ghislaine Maxwell introduced them to Jeffrey Epstein and put them in scenarios to enable Jeffrey Epstein to twist their arms that for various money and favors and things like that they should give him a massage, and that those massages quickly went beyond just rubbing his shoulders into pleasuring him. The point is that each of them were talking about how they were specifically servicing Jeffrey Epstein individually and not third parties. They talked about how they met some of these other celebrities in his sphere. The first two girls testified that their experiences happened in the mid to late 90s. Annie Farmer and the third woman testify. The third woman is not someone anyone has ever seen or heard from since. Frankly, she looked the most bedraggled out of all of them. The first two still look like supermodels. The third one had a miserable life, which I did an 8 to 12 minute video that I had as the featured video on my thing, because that was because I thought that the redirect done by Maureen Comey was so exceptional, because she had been. I'm going to call her Marilyn again. I don't remember if it's Marilyn or Carolyn. If you watch my video, you'll see it there. But she, that poor woman. If you do the math, she's in her 30s, and she looked like she's in her 60s, and she had a lifetime of being on drugs and being abused from the time before she ever bled by her own family, before she met Jeffrey Epstein, and then by Jeffrey Epstein. And we heard all about the details about how they would get paid they would leave a few $100s on the counter for them, and if they brought in a friend, because they wanted them to they wanted to encourage them, hey, get your friends to come here and we'll pay them too. And use them to basically find fresh talent. But that she claimed she started when she was 12 years old. She never left the state. Her story was horrible. Horrible. Terrible. How do I end up covering all these stupid trials? I end up getting like the most depressing trials in the world. If Guthrie came into the Maxwell trial, it would cause an international issue with Prince Andrew in UK. Keep it to what it is, needed for conviction only. Yeah, probably. And I think that they should. I think they should try and arrest Prince Andrew. He lost his, I'm pretty sure that Prince Andrew lost his royal title over this. Pretty sure. I know he ended up settling with Virginia Guthrie for millions of dollars and gave her 13 million pounds or something. So everything about this story is horrible. And the sad thing is that this now is going to linger over Trump's head forever. He could have been so clear of this if he actually had real transparency here. This is never going to go away now. This never should have happened. All right. I think it's time for me to. So that's. I'll keep you updated if there's any more developments in this story. I just check back here, and leave a comment. Tell me your thoughts. Do you think that this is? Do you agree with me that Trump should go to jail? If in fact he's on that list. Do you think that the first version I told you is correct, or the second version? Do you think the first version, where there really is no list and that was all just red meat thrown at MAGA, and they can't really trust Virginia Guthrie, or do you think that there is a list and that they're lying about it now? I do think the one thing I'll say is I do think it's very possible that Pam Bondi was exaggerating when she said there's a list on my desk rather than there being a file on my desk. I think that's possible. Back in February, she looks incompetent though. She looks utterly incompetent. dangerously incompetent. I can accept that's possible. That it's not like there's a a file which says Epstein's list. So when she says the list is on my desk, if she had a file on her desk, she might refer to that as a list. Or in an interview, she might not be speaking so specifically. She's asked, "Hey, what's going on with the whole Epstein case and his lists?" And she's like, "It's on my desk right now." You could see that. You can, if you want. She's like, "It's on my desk right now." If you want to try and give a pass, you can find bases to give her a pass, I guess. It's a terrible story for this is terrible for MAGA. This is a very bad day. And I pray that Trump cleans this up expeditiously, because this needs to be cleaned up. And that's what I got on this. That's all I have to say about that. If you missed my rant, by the way, sometimes I'll see myself later on as I start to transition over to the next story about the attack on the ICE agents. That is 100% the fault of Democrats. 100% the fault. I'm going to share with you like something. If you missed my last locals, I'm going to give you a clip from it that I clipped myself. I clipped myself here. This is me ranting at Justice Sotomayor. Most of you enjoy seeing a good Lawgic rant. So, if you want to, I'll give you a bit of my rant from goodlogic.locals.com when I did a stream on Thursday. And my favorite part of this rant is like the last 13 seconds of this. It's a 2-minute rant. And I was very outraged that Sotomayor was dissenting. I was talking about the decision that the Supreme Court said, yeah, you judge, we issued a decision and told the judge, hey, you can't stand in Trump's way here. And then he's basically like, well, this only affects my April order, it doesn't affect my May order, so I'm still going to stand in his way. And the Supreme Court said, he basically flipped him the bird. And even Justice Kagan, who lost that decision, she was in the minority in that decision, she concurred with this new decision, Supreme Court, saying once the Supreme Court has reached a decision, you have to follow that, and you can't circumvent that. And mind-blowingly, Sotomayor and Jackson said, no. He was totally fine with what he did here. And I was outraged that you're basically undermining your own merit, your own voice, because you're basically saying if we issue a ruling, it's totally fine for district court judges to circumvent what we expressly direct them to do, which is so stupid. So but my favorite part of this is the last 13 seconds. So I don't like when judges are so short-sighted that they don't realize that the words they're expressing, the opinions they're holding, the high and mighty, I think this is an injustice, woke perspectives that they want to foist on society are actually destroying the system that gives them the authority to be issuing anything. Without this system, you have no function. You have no purpose, Justice Sotomayor. So you want to sit there signing off and saying, it's only fine for these judges, district court judges, completely ignoring what the Supreme Court says. Then why the hell should you be saying anything? Why do you have a job? Why are you getting why are you on a salary? Why are you being mandated to do anything? You are actually the only judicial position in the world that is actually referenced directly in the Constitution. These district court judges don't have any of that authority. And instead, you want to say, hey, when those district court judges come along and they decide, I'm just going to ignore what the Supreme Court says. And you're like, well, sounds good to me. You cited my dissent. You are undermining your own stupid courts. You're undermining yourself. You're cutting off your own knees and basically saying, I have no merit at all. I offer the world nothing. That's what Justice Sotomayor is doing. That's what that stupid judge was doing when she said that to me. You're saying you have no function, no purpose. You are Captain Dunsel. And the audacity, how short-sighted. If you're so short-sighted as a judge that you can't see that, then you are not fit for that job. This is the part. Anyway, that's what I thought about that. I amused myself. Anyway, that's what I thought about that. Oh, thank you. Thank you kindly. Anyway, that's what I thought about that. But thank you. Thank you. I want to answer this question that I saw pop up here. What about the Planned Parenthood funding ruling? Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. That's going to be kicked out. There's a ruling. What Thad the Man is asking about here is there's a ruling that came out, I think today, where a district court judge put a hold on Congress's law that says we're defunding Planned Parenthood. Yeah, you have no authority on there. Like nothing. This is a judge that's making a complete jackass out of themselves. It's not an EO. Congress can pass a law. This is the stupidest TRO ever. Not yet. No. I've been busy. I haven't found the cable yet. I hope Trump releases all this after the next post-election. That's the ideal time. I don't think Trump's on the list. I don't know. Let's talk about the Democrats and how violent they are. The violent Democrats. House Democrats now admit that their base is urging them to abandon law and order, embrace political violence, and even, quote, be willing to get shot at ICE facilities, claiming that bloodshed is needed to stop Trump. Look at what you built here. Why are they calling for that? Because you've been screaming about this. What are we supposed to do? Dems are being told by constituents to break the rules, fight dirty, not be afraid to get hurt. Some of them have suggested what we really need to do is be willing to get shot, said one House Democrat. There needs to be blood. Who made this environment? Who made this environment? If not you. If not you. Oh, forget about you. Forget about that. And in fact, their violence is translated. Unfortunately, it's actually coming to fruition. Saturday, a North Texas police officer was ambushed at a DHS facility, shot in the neck by 8 men in body armor. Today, an active shooter ambushed Border Patrol agents in Texas, and a cop was shot. Democrat pro-legal alien rhetoric is marking law enforcement for death. Unbelievable. These people should be sent away. People should get the chair.
Right shortly about 8 or 10 minutes before 6 a.m. this morning is when we react to the call. Once we were on scene and we determined we have not only a shooter that's been neutralized, we have an active scene, but the real trigger for us to begin shutting things down was that strange vehicle in the parking lot, because we did not know whether or not there were any other secondary or even more suspects at large, or suspects or explosives, that is, in the parking lot. So out of precaution, we shut this whole zone down until we were able to determine that piece of it. And that is, and just to the point that I walked up here is when we finally got a green light. That is, we finally said, okay, all's clear as far as that particular vehicle, and we're going to be clearing.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's really crazy. This will only escalate until you start arresting and putting these people down. This morning, an individual opened fire on the entrance to the United States Border Patrol Sector Annex in McAllen, Texas. Both Border Patrol agents and local police helped neutralize the shooter, as in putting him down forever. 2 officers and a Border Patrol employee were injured, including 1 shot in the knee. All 3 have gone to the hospital. This is an ongoing investigation led by the FBI. You need to see who that guy was working with. The attack on Border Patrol agents in McAllen underscores the escalating threats facing law enforcement amid Washington's failure to secure our borders. While agents risk their lives neutralizing armed assailants, DHS continues pushing half measures, like the CBP Home app, a digital self-deportation tool that does nothing to deter violent extremists targeting federal facilities. This ambush proves that border security requires physical deterrence, not bureaucratic gimmicks. Every dollar wasted on apps and streamlined processes should instead fund hardened infrastructure, increased patrols, and advanced surveillance to protect those defending our sovereignty. See, this point I disagree with. I disagree with this. But it's an interesting question. Until DHS prioritizes frontline security over performative tech solutions, agents will keep facing preventable dangers. The facts behind this attack demand a hard look at DHS priorities. See the full analysis here. I disagree with DOJ AI on this. Now, DOJ AI is a right-wing guy who's relatively popular. And I think that this is wrong. We need to use every possible means to get these deportations in full swing. And to the extent we can encourage people to self-deport for good. I disagree with him on this, but I'm curious about what your take is on this. Do you think that it makes sense? You're saying every dollar we waste on this. I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Every person that self-deports is one less person we have to deport. It's one less encounter DHS and Border Patrol have to have. So, no, I totally disagree with this take here. I agree that we need physical deterrence. That's true. I'm simply saying to the extent we can get people, the digital self-deportation tool is not designed to deter violent extremists. It's to get people the heck out of here without there being a violent encounter. It's a carrot instead of a stick. The more people that take the carrot, the fewer sticks we need to wield. Every time you wield a stick, there's an opportunity for a calamity. You can get people to walk out chasing a carrot. In that case, there's fewer incidents where they're interacting in a potentially violent situation with DHS. So I don't know what DOJ AI here is thinking. To me, this doesn't make any sense at all. I don't understand that perspective. There's an image of the neutralized guy, Ryan Luis Mesquita. As Andy Ngo from the Post Millennial reports. Border Patrol agents were ambushed by an active shooter when they arrived at Border Patrol Annex facility in McAllen, Texas. According to Fox News' Bill Mulligan, 3 federal and Texas law enforcement sources tell me an active shooter with a rifle and tactical gear ambushed Border Patrol agents as they arrived at Border Patrol Annex facility in McAllen, Texas this morning. Quote, local police and federal agents returned fire, killing him. I'm told this was a purposeful ambush attack against federal agents, and a press conference is planned for later this morning. You need to start taking out Antifa. We need to start rooting out these folks, the people who are behind all these things. We need to start stepping up before this becomes conflict. Start pressing them for actual illegal activity they engage in. What do I mean by start pressing on Antifa? There's an incident that happened in Portland that I wanted to just share with you here. We got good news out of Portland. By the way, while you're here, if you could please like and subscribe, I would be most obliged. Like, hit the like button, guys. Hit the freaking like button.
And it took over 100.
All right, let's just start this in the beginning. But this is what I want to see more of. Credit to liberal hive mind.
Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Now, I gotta tell you, this wasn't on my bingo card. I didn't think I'd be making 3 videos this year on the absolutely based woman known as Numerarch in downtown Portland. But I'm sure you guys remember a few days ago we talked about a Portland woman, an absolute legend, who just had enough and she decided she was going to stand up to that group of Antifa degenerates that set up a disruptive occupation outside of her home.
Oh my God. Turn that down! It's midnight! I will turn it down. I would love.
That's her yelling at Antifa, who are basically blasting sirens outside a DHS facility.
You decide to ask me, and I'm being nice even though you're screaming at me. You! I'm coming back every night and I'm destroying and wrecking your shit! Turn it down! We the people need sleep!
Well, her online alias is Numerarch, and she's not some politician. She has no history online of lecturing people about this, that, or the other. She's not some activist with 1 million followers or representing some nonprofit. No, she's just a regular citizen who, in my view, represents so many fed up people. People who are just sick with the lack of leadership in big Democrat cities. And well, while the story started off as just being yet another viral encounter, it ended up getting a whole lot deeper than that, as our friend Numerarch ended up exposing the Antifa headquarters. And well, now it seems like things are moving. Numerarch got the ball rolling, setting pressure on the city of Portland to actually do their damn frickin' jobs. That little homeless shelter.
And indeed, this is what we need to see a lot more of.
Otherwise, the Antifa headquarters just got raided by Portland PD. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so let's go ahead and fill in the final gaps. We've got Numerarch, who identified the Antifa location.
Forgive me if my voice has been gone for the past 2 days. I'm going to pass quickly. Okay, this is the building that they're operating out of.
But after that video, nothing ended up happening until our friend Numerarch hit the city with a lawsuit, and then magically, 2 days later, boom, this happened. The cops raid the little Antifa headquarters there.
Hey, did you get a video of them entering without a warrant?
Okay, I'll try to inform you. I will go back.
This is what we need a lot more of. This is what we need a lot more of.
Yup, that same little den that she exposed in her video, a ground-level apartment that some leftist loser was letting Antifa operate out of, has officially been shut down, with many of the individuals who were shacked up in there getting arrested.
And notice what got them to move, though. What got them off their tails was a financial lawsuit. That's what ends up getting Portland to act like, this might hit our pocket. Maybe we'll do something. Yeah. It's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. What do we have? What happens when with all the violence that's going on here? Everything that we're seeing happening here with the people trying to literally physically harm ICE. Instead of taking ICE's side, you get idiots like this woman here.
I am going to say,
Mayor Bass, I need to get my phone and we're departing.
Okay. All right. Mayor Bass.
Mayor Bass.
Any comment, Mayor Bass? Thank you.
Mayor Bass, any comment?
Yes, my comment is they need to leave, and they need to leave right now. They need to leave because this is unacceptable.
Who did you speak with?
Just wait and see.
Mayor Bass,
They will be leaving soon.
Mayor Bass, who did you speak with on the phone just now? Who did you speak with on the phone?
I had a pistol.
Wow.
Unbelievable. She's far from the only one. I got a whole bunch of links for you guys here of different representatives basically making Democrat representatives making complete jackasses out of themselves. Armored vehicles, tactical gear, military-grade weapons, all for show. This isn't security, it's intimidation, and has no place in our communities. See? Dan Goldman trying to get legislation passed to make sure that ICE has to show their face. They're dangerous. They're dangerous people. 6 California Republican lawmakers are now calling on President Trump to end ICE's sweeping raids and support mass amnesty for non-criminal illegals, citing pressure from employers. So they saw that he started caving on the strawberry pickers and the hoteliers. State Senator Suzette Baladres, Senate Minority Leader Brian Jones. These are all from California, I assume. Yeah, signed by following California Republicans. Unbelievable. It's hurting the economy. Oh no, it's hurting the state's economy. We need the slave labor. The Republicans saying, I'm going to keep repeating this until people understand. Karen Bass was not only a Castro operative and a communist, but she got elevated to vice chair of National Endowment for Democracy, which is the center of soft power operations in the U.S. government. She is not a DEI mayor. She's extremely powerful and at the global stage. She was actively involved in shaping foreign policy with the Obama administration, especially Africa. Her Ghana visits during the LA wildfires wasn't a vacation. It was part of a Biden delegate to greet Ghana's new president. She was considered HUD secretary for the Biden administration. Instead, she nominated the person who would become the actual HHS secretary, California Attorney General Xavier Becerra. If a little Castro operative gets elevated to this stage, what does this imply about the rest of the United States government? It's terrifying. It's terrifying. Bill Mulligan saying, we are with hundreds of federal agents and military as a massive federal immigration enforcement operations underway in the MacArthur Park area of the sanctuary city of LA, an area with heavy MS-13 influence. And they're still screaming, how dare they come in there armed? That's what the leftards are screaming about. It was just an innocent park with little kids playing there. Who cares if they're MS-13? Little kids are all MS-13 though. Feds respond with with one of the largest yet, including Border Patrol agents on horseback. Protesters are already showing up. Of course they are. Here's Representative Stansbury saying this administration needs to stop terrorizing communities. Now, full stop. Full stop. Here's Tom Homan on this. Awesome bass, Tom Homan.
Zoran Mondani, the likely next mayor of New York City's promised not to cooperate with you or with ICE or with deportations of any kind. Do you have a plan? Is there a plan to work around that? How are you going to handle it?
Feel like I'm going to have to, we're going to be in New York City, and President Trump said it 2 weeks ago. We're going to double down and triple down in sanctuary cities. Why? Not because you're a blue city or blue state, because we know that's where the problem is. We know they're releasing public safety threats and national security threats to the streets every day because they don't honor our detainers. We know that. We don't have that problem like in Florida, where every sheriff in the state's working with us. So where we're going to send our assets, we're going to send them where the problem is. Sanctuary cities. So I've said it before, we'll flood the zone with sanctuary cities.
Zoran Mondani, the likely next mayor.
This is the best appointment of Trump's life right here. Best appointment of Trump's life. Don't let me see him close at this point. And if you're worried about Karen Bass having an influence here, Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino says it was the official on the phone with the LA Mayor Karen Bass at MacArthur Park today. Remember we just saw her on the phone? I asked him for his message to her as she demands raids end. Quote, I don't work for Karen Bass. Better get used to us now because this is going to be normal very soon. We will go anywhere, anytime we want in Los Angeles. That's the appropriate response. Basically, a big, giant "We're number one" sign with both hands. That's what's appropriate here. We must test new microphone capabilities to capture the IBM keyboard's click-clack sounds to lull me to sleep. Is there any legal way to force the Democratic politicians to stop their rhetoric? How to hold them accountable for incitement or seditious conspiracy? Well, I don't think we want that. I don't think we want that. Not unless they're very overt, because we want to make sure that we're protecting free speech. So I don't think we want that. Now, if they're more direct, then I think then justice should be swift and stern. But until they cross that line, we don't want to dampen free speech, even against these animals. If Trump said to Cash Dan and Barbie, we will use Epstein file to push my agenda, would they say no? Why say anything? Why come out and say anything? If this was the plan, just say nothing. Say nothing. Why are you doing this now? Why are you coming out with this now? It's the dumbest thing in the world. So I don't buy it. Charcoal girls not care about climate change. All right, you want me to talk about the whole climate change thing? You brought up climate change. Now I'll give a quick coverage on that. I do wonder if ICE went to the park to distract. Well, they did arrest. Probably did arrest in other parts of the city. I'd be cool with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. You asked me about the climate change thing. You brought up the climate change. We'll address the climate change. Bill Malugin, thank you for your attention to this. My apologies. My apologies. Bill Malugin. Politico is reporting because you brought up climate change. You say charcoal. Apparently, California is reconsidering the whole climate change existentialness. It's not quite as existential as they claimed it was. Democrats retreat on climate. It's one of the more disappointing turnabouts California, Donald Trump is coming for California's signature climate policies, and so is California. Stung by the party's sweeping losses in November and desperate to win back working class voters, the Democratic Party is in retreat on climate change. I thought it's an existential threat. Nowhere is this retrenchment more jarring than the nation's most populous state, a longtime bastion of progressive politics on the environment. In the past 2 weeks alone, California Democrats have retrenched on environmental reviews for construction projects, a cap on oil industry profits, and clean fuel mandates. Elected officials are warning that ambitious laws and mandates are driving up the state's onerous cost of living, echoing longstanding Republicans' arguments and frustrating some allies who say Democrats are capitulating to political pressure because it doesn't work, it doesn't make any sense. California was the vocal climate leader during the first Trump administration, said Chris Chavez, Deputy Policy Director for the Coalition for Clean Air. It's questionable whether or not that leadership is still there. Thank God. The hoax has been exposed. California leaders are still positioning themselves as the vanguard of resistance to the presidential's environmental rollbacks, and polls still consistently find voters believing addressing climate change is worth the cost. Gavin Newsom has sued to block Trump's removal of California's permission to enforce its clean car standards, and vowed to extend a landmark cap and trade program imperiled by Trump. But they're in a far different position than during Trump's first term, when they were signing deals with the automakers to keep the state's emission rules afloat. And even 2 years ago, when they were taking on oil companies by threatening to cap their profits. It's a reversal that is dismaying to climate activists. They're all upset. We got some challenges, and so it just requires some new considerations. Maybe that you suck. Maybe that your policies here are stupid. Maybe that's what you should be reconsidering. And people are tired of wasting money on your stupid agenda. Newsom said, quote, "It's not rolling back anything. That's actually marching forward in a way that's thoughtful and considered." Meaning, please don't tell everyone that I've changed my mind to like what the polls are saying. Please don't say that. Please don't say that. So maybe all hope is not lost. Maybe eventually, maybe it just takes time when justice and decision making doesn't come swift enough. But maybe, what we can take from today, one heartening thing is that eventually the message gets through. I like offering a white pill, and that's my white pill to you. But I would like you to weigh in with your thoughts and comments about this story, the ICE situation here. How accountable do you think we should hold Democrats for their rhetoric? If you think that I'm being too soft, whether you agree with me that we should be targeting more of these Antifa cells, and certainly your thoughts on Epstein. That's what I got for you tonight. Landing the plane quickly as I'm trying to beat the 2-hour mark here. So I will say to you, my friends, lab meat is definitely not for you. You know that. It's for they, them. Plane is coming in relatively quickly. I'm doing a quick check to make sure I didn't miss anything over in the ghetto as I'm talking here. But it's definitely not meant for you. You know that. And you also know that no matter how they package it, rebrand it, cover it in chocolate or marshmallows or whatever, do not eat the bugs. Don't eat the bugs. I'm not sure if I'm going to be streaming tomorrow. You'll find out that on goodlogic.locals.com. That's goodlogic.locals.com. I'm looking to be, I've got like a studio move thing happening tomorrow. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be streaming tomorrow. I do expect and hope to be dropping a video tomorrow, but not sure I'm going to be live streaming. You'll find that at goodlogic.locals.com. I urge you to sign up over there. goodlogic.locals.com. Until next time, my friends, good night, and as always, Godspeed.